It's a paper made from paper, but if I use a perfectly good paper, it wouldn't be very meaningful, right? So I'm going to use a goose paper. I have leftover paper from photocopying, some papers from my children's notebook, and even pieces a sketchbook. I also have a kitchen towel that I just used to wipe some water. I tried to cut these papers as small as possible and put them into a large container. Since I won't be using a blender, I tried to cut these pieces even smaller. Once I've cut enough paper, I soak them in water. I think I let them soak for about an hour. After an hour, I checked and saw the A4 paper and kitchen towel had softened very well, but the notebook and sketchbook papers were not breaking down as easily, probably because they are made from different materials. If I make a paper in this state, it will definitely turn out rough. So I started manually breaking down all the pieces by rubbing them with my hands. This took much longer than I expected. After over an hour of rubbing, the paper still wasn't as fine as I wanted. It might have been better to use a blender. To create a nice looking sheet of paper, I would need to make a frame, but I decided to use kitchen tools instead. I found a suitable strainer and decided to use that. I filled a large container with water and add about 3 handfuls of the purple mixture I made. If you add too little, the paper won't form well. After some trial and error, I figured out the right amount to use. I sprayed the pulp mixture onto the strainer. To make it easier to remove the dried paper later, I laid a piece of cloth underneath. Oops, the first attempt failed. Before trying this, I thought I would be good at it, but it turns out making paper is not as easy as I imagined. I flipped the strainer and added the pulp to the bottom side, which seemed to be work better. Luckily, the second attempt was successful. Yeah! I repeated this process once more. Although the shape of the paper isn't very pretty, I think it's good enough. Since there was a lot of pulp left, I added more to the strainer, drained the water, and let it dry. For the third try, I decided to just leave the paper to dry on the strainer. There was still a lot of pulp left in the water, so I filtered it out with another strainer and pressed it down firmly. This way, I ended up with a total of 4 sheets of paper to dry. The next day, I checked the paper. The ones placed on the cloth had dried completely and they peeled off easily. However, the paper on the strainer hadn't fully dried yet. I decided to separate it from the strainers and let it finish it drying. The third pieces came off the strainer very well, but the fourth one was stuck tightly. I carefully used a knife to loosen it from the holes in the strainer. I thought it would tear, but fortunately, it came off without damage. With a little damage. I placed the third and fourth sheets on a well-ventilated and sunny spot. After drying, I'm going to press them down with the heavy books. I will use the heaviest books I have once I don't read the Ta-da! I've finally made 4 sheets of handmade paper. The process was a bit messy and time-consuming, but holding the paper I made myself feels incredibly rewarding. One thing I learned from making paper is that it uses lots of water. Water is a primary ingredient in paper making, constituting more than 90% of the process. We often don't realize how much water is used because it goes through various drying stages. Thank you for watching and see you soon. Bye.